Hello and welcome back with another Star Trek The Animated Series episode review. Today we're going to talk about the slave weapon. So in this episode, in the shuttlecraft Copernicus, on board Lieutenant Sulu, Commander Spock and Lieutenant Uhura, so they're transporting a rare artifacts to starbase 25. This artifact is a box, it's a stasis box, supposedly coming from the slave empire. It's an ancient civilization, an ancient race. This stasis box was designed as a cargo box for this empire. But so during their mission to starbase 25, the box started to glow. So this box doesn't necessarily serve as a transportation device or a stasis device. It's also a decoy as well, so it can actually recognize other boxes around. Mr. Spock and the crew, they start to investigate and they land in an ice planet nearby where they supposedly will find the other box. When they landed on this ice planet, they were looking for the artifacts and they got surprised by the Kzinti. I know the name sounds Kzinti, but it's not Zindi, it's the Kzinti. It's an ancient cat look-alike predator race, meat eaters obviously. They attacked the crew members. So they were after the device. They had a separate box, but it was empty. And they were looking for something else because they knew they had to find a weapon in this box. So they captured Spock, Sulu and Uhura and the box as well. So they opened the box and they found the picture about the slave race. So that was one picture from the slave race basically, plus a piece of meat, which didn't really make any sense. So how can a piece of meat survive that long period? We're talking about an ancient race and they extinct a long time ago, and a piece of meat, even if in space, but should have been frozen and then, it's just complicated. It wouldn't have been a normal piece of meat. But so the funny thing is they didn't really went back to this part in the episode, so we didn't really find out why the meat actually survived. Obviously the stasis box, so maybe it's like a hibernational cycle or something. So apart from the picture and the meat, they obviously found the weapon as well, and they were really looking for it. And that's what they wanted to do. That's why they wanted to get the other box, because they wanted to restore the ruins of the Kzinti Empire. Yeah, good luck with that. While the 3 crew members were in captivity by the Kzinti, there was an ancient Kzinti. This Kzinti had a telepathic capabilities. He was really old. He's really old. You can actually see in his face he's really tired as well, because a lot of mind melding and telepathic capabilities, and I'm pretty sure he had lots of victims before to do the sort of mind meld as well. As long as they're predators, they don't really see Vulcans as a threat, because they're like superior race, and obviously women's as well, which made a little comment on Uhura and the state of the woman in the 60s as well, and the 70s. Because Spock mentioned to Uhura, don't be afraid, because we won't attack you because you're a woman and you're superior in a sense. And Uhura got really surprised, like, oh, thank you, Mr. Spock. Sulu being the only human, vulnerable human, Spock came up with the idea, okay, if you sense anything from the telepath Kzinti, just think about a vegetable. A vegetable. Honestly. So according to Spock, that was the only chance for survival and not to get eaten by the Kzinti. So this weapon, this ancient slave weapon, it had a really interesting features as well. It had lots of settings as well, so it has serves different shapes. So it was like a shape-shifting device. So when you actually switch the modes, it changes its shape, and you could actually turn around the top part as well. So it constantly changed its shape, and it constantly changed its purpose as well. None of them really had any power on any power settings on it. But when they went through the settings, one of the settings was actually the computer itself. So they woke up the computer inside this weapon. Obviously, as long as it was a weapon, a device, long gone to deep sleep, and the computer didn't even know how long he was actually deactivated, because for the computer the passing of time wasn't necessarily noticeable. The computer didn't know when he was switched off and how long he was actually switched off for, and it woke up. he still thought the slave empire had a battle with another race. And obviously the Kzinti wanted to get the power from the actual gun. So they went outside. The Kzinti wanted to try the weapon on the crew members to destroy them. So they tried different settings from the weapon, and one of the settings actually the energy draining device. So they drained all the energy around them, so Spock and Uhura and Sulu, they could escape from the stasis where they actually been trapped in. So they managed to get the weapon from the Kzinti, but the Kzinti managed to get Uhura as a hostage. So they started to bargain, and while they bargained, Spock actually realized there was a settings, a really powerful settings on this machine, and they blew up a really big part of that place where they've been. And obviously the Kzinti got really interested, and they really wanted to get this extra feature, this extra weapon from the slave weapon. Obviously Spock and Sulu was unconscious because of the shockwaves and everything, so they captured them, they brought them up to the ship, and the Kzinti tried to talk to the gun again, and they wanted to get the extra feature. Weapon change its shape again, but it wasn't the same shape as it was before, and Spock noticed that, and he was suspicious already because the same thing didn't really happen as before. They got the settings right at the beginning, but then what happened now? So as it turned out, that weapon, that computer inside the weapon was offline for such a long time, and the computer was still thinking there was a war. But the Kzinti wanted to know was the settings for that powerful weapon, what Spock and Sulu got to try out. Obviously they tried to answer a couple of questions, but the computer didn't really give away anything without any authorization code. So without not knowing the codes, and without not knowing what the situation is around the weapon, around this computer, he turned into a self-destructing device. So they actually changed its shape, and the computer thought, okay, he's in enemy hands, and it programmed to not to give up on the security feature, so he turned itself into a destruction device. So at the same time when it triggered, obviously the weapon exploded with the Kzinti captain and with the other crew member as well. So all the Kzinti gone, the crew went back to the shuttlecraft and they sail away. So this episode was a short story adaptation from Larry Niven, the soft weapon short story. And this was actually the first episode when it didn't feature the Enterprise, the interior of the Enterprise, and the rest of the crew. Basically, this was just a Spock, Sulu and Uhura centric episode in a shuttlecraft, and this really gave the different settings for the whole episode. They were in a big distance from the ship, and they were alone in an away mission to deliver something, a status box, to a starbase. So it is quite rare when actually they have something precious in a shuttlecraft. It was a kind of interesting situation. I quite like the fact of the Copernicus. It's a nice looking shuttle again. It's like the Aero shuttle from the previous episode. Something what I didn't really see before. And funny enough, Copernicus will come back in Star Trek V: The Final Frontier as a shuttle. Obviously it won't look like the one what we see in the episode, but interestingly enough it will be featured in a later feature movie. I really like the look of the Kzinti race. It's like a cat, sort of half cat, half lion, with long arms and long legs, and it was kind of interesting to see this race. I thought it will be the same race as Merax from, but obviously it's not the same race, so it has the same features, but it's not the same race as Merax's race. So interestingly enough, Sulu mentioned the Kzinti and the humans had wars, four previous wars, and one of them was set at 200 years before this time, which makes a little confusion because it is the 23rd century, 2200, so technically the Kzinti war between the humans happened in 2050 or something like that, but it's highly unlikely because humans only exist in planet Earth. They only have the after the Third World War. So it's highly unlikely. Obviously this is a writer's mistake back then, because obviously in the 60s and the 70s they didn't really know how the humanity, everything will progress. They had an idea, but they didn't really think that much ahead. So, and they didn't really know that time when those when those episodes will actually play in time. So they sort of made up this 200 years. It's well into the episode. It doesn't really feel accurate from this point of view, but obviously if we will get 200 years later and we don't have Enterprises, then the whole thing won't make any sense anyway. So that was the only thing that actually made a little confusion in me, but apart from that, it was a lovely episode. I enjoyed watching it, and it was a different setup, a different setting. As a rating, I would say 5 out of 5. Again, I didn't really have any problem with the episode, although I would argue with the fact as if they transporting an ancient rare artifacts, they shouldn't do it in a shuttlecraft. They should do it in a starship. But it gave a different environment to the whole episode, so it was very admirable. So that was my animated series episode review for today. If you've seen this episode, let me know if you liked it or not in the comment section below. Don't forget to share and like the video, and subscribe to the channel for all the geekiness twice a week. Till next time, live long and prosper.
Kind of like Neo from the Matrix, you've got that kind of amazing last second ability. You're practically invulnerable.
But Superman can do that. And he's faster than Flash.
Yeah, but Superman just takes it in the face.
Okay, that's a bit gross.